Hi, everybody. This is Sophia Mona Lisa of the Golden Ray Center and the Rosewell Mystery School. And so I want to thank you for being a patron on my Patreon account. What I'm going to share with you today is exclusive content. Nobody else is going to have access to this huge drop that I'm going to be bringing forth through this video journal. And it has to do with some aspects that I spoke to in that June Creative Energies video. And it's all about igniting the sacred flame of our inner Christo-Sophia. So I hope that I can find the words to share this with you in a way that you can see what I see and that you'll be as excited about it as I am. So what I've realized in having some space from the June Creative Energies video is that I have unwittingly tapped into a timeline, and I'm starting to see more and more of the pieces of the timeline fill in. So let me talk to you about that. And of course, it has to do with this igniting of the sacred flame of our inner Christo-Sophia. So remember that this goes back to this creative energies for June that I did that was posted here on my Patreon account on June 2nd. So if you haven't seen this yet, you definitely want to see it so you'll understand what it is that I'm referring to. So in that video, I talked about the fact that Venus yesterday, June 5th, was going to be stepping from 29 degrees of Cancer into 0 degrees of Leo, and was going to be making an opposition to Pluto retrograde at 0 degrees Aquarius. And that this is this aspect that happened yesterday, June 5th, today is June 6th, is similar to what happened last month, May, in terms of Mars, the sacred masculine, making that same shift from 29 degrees of Cancer into 0 degrees of Leo, standing across from Pluto retrograde at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And I referenced in there, as I started to receive some understanding around what that was all about, that we were actually experiencing a quantum transplant of our inner feminine and our inner masculine. And so let me just kind of flesh that out a little bit. So first of all, here is the event that happened on May 20th, where Mars moved into that 0 degree Leo, standing across from Aquarius. So remember, Mars is the sacred masculine. It's the sacred masculine above, and it's our inner masculine. And Leo is this compassionate heart space. This is where our inner Christo-Sophia resides, what they call the seat of our soul. And standing across from Pluto retrograde at 0 degrees of Aquarius, Aquarius, of course, has to do with the quantum field. Pluto retrograde is looking inward, pulling our awareness inward in terms of how can we be empowered in our inner realm? What is it that we can, quote unquote, rebirth within us that is empowering in our inner realm from the quantum field? And so this really tracks back. And I didn't think to look if this was a part of the timeline, and it may very well be, but I shared last month or the month before how I was aware that the voice of the sacred feminine was getting a reboot, and that the reboot was coming in from these higher density fields, and that the reason why this was having to come in from the higher density to reboot what's here on the planet is because there's been so many thousands of years of the patriarchy, you know, really doing its level best to remove the sacred feminine from the planet, that all of the work that the star seeds, the light workers, and so forth have been doing to help the reemergence of the sacred feminine it was effective, but it wasn't able to get the stain out, right? Like if you spill coffee on your white shirt, you've got a stain, you can't get the stain out of the white shirt. So now you're not going to wear it out for dinner with friends, but you might wear it at home around the house. And so because the stain of what the patriarchy had done to the people on, you know, earth being able to speak that sacred feminine voice, they couldn't bring in the purity. They couldn't bring in the purity or the power of that sacred feminine voice. And so it was being rebooted on the planet, coming down from these higher frequencies. Well, this is kind of a similar type event that I've tapped into here. So what's happening is the inner feminine and the inner masculine is also getting not a reboot, although you might call it a reboot, but it's the way that I was shown is it's like a surgical transplant where the inner masculine, when it's standing at 0 Leo at this compassionate heart space across from Pluto, is actually being transplanted with a higher frequency of the sacred masculine. I don't know how to say it any differently in terms of how I'm tapping into this, but by having this transplant of the sacred masculine, it's affording us this huge empowerment. It's like rebirthing the sacred masculine within us. So, but it's more of like I said, more like a surgical transplant from the quantum field coming into our compassionate heart space. And so that happened May, and I didn't even pick up on that in May. What I realized is when this event for June is coming up here, yesterday, June 5th, when I recognized, oh yeah, Mars just moved into this 0 degree of Leo position last month, standing across from Pluto. Now we've got Venus, the sacred feminine, right? The sacred feminine above our inner sacred feminine, moving into that place as well. And keep in mind the timing of this, because June 11th is when Pluto leaves Aquarius and goes back into Capricorn for the rest of this year. So the timing here is extremely precise. There's a precision here to this, the timing and the timeline that I've tapped into for this quantum transplant, like a surgical transplant, to be affected, so to speak. So I talked about that in the June Creative Energies video. But now I've got a whole new piece to this that's been revealed to me. And it actually got revealed to me yesterday on the day of Venus moving into that 0 degrees of Leo position. And I was doing a 6-strand DNA activation reading for one of my clients from back in February. So now we see we've got an event that happened February 22nd, and we have an event that happened May 20th, and we've got an event that happened June 5th. And this is all tying together. Now, in that gate activation, that Venus gate activation from February, when this sixth strand of DNA came online, this is what it looked like. The moon and Venus were at 3 degrees of Aries. Aries is all about self-love. And it was making a trine, the path of most allowance, to Lilith, the sovereignty goddess, at 5 degrees of Leo. Leo being that compassionate heart space. So we see here that with this gate activation, which was happening at the solar plexus chakra, the gate of personal power, it was a way that we were able to get back some of our power that's been taken away from us. It was happening at the gate, the solar plexus chakra, but it was really related to this compassionate heart space. And so I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So what we see is on either side of this trine, the moon and Venus here and Lilith here, right, in fire signs, Aries and Leo, fire signs, is we've got all of this cosmic support for the moon Venus side of it, and we've got all of this cosmic support for the Lilith side of it. So this is like a huge empowerment that's taking place across this trine, this path of most allowance. And so what we see with the moon and Venus gate activation point is that here's Aries, and on one side of Aries, you've got Pisces, and on the other side of Aries, you've got Taurus, okay? So you can kind of see it even in this image. Here's Aries, on one side is Pisces, on the other side is Taurus. And when we start engaging luminary bodies in those astrological signs that are on either side of Aries, this creates a 30-degree aspect, or what's known as a semi-sextile. Now, outside of a conjunction where 2 planets or more are standing together in the same place in the sky, the most intimate, closest connection that luminary bodies can have are through this semi-sextile positioning. And so we see that the moon-Venus gate is getting support from the sun over here in Pisces, and it's also getting support from the North Node over here in Taurus. And so, first of all, if we talk about the North Node in Taurus, what we know is that in terms of the eternal now, that this is the moment within the eternal now that humanity is supposed to be embodying this huge empowerment that's happening here at the compassionate heart center. Well, we know that even further, not because Lilith is in Leo, but because over here in Pisces is the sun. And the sun is the Lord of Leo. And so we see here that this compassionate heart center that is all about the sun and all about Leo, this radical, radiant light of love, is coming right in from Pisces, this realm of divine love, the absolute source of divine love, coming in. And it's supporting Moon and Venus in Aries self-love to help to expand this compassionate heart space. And what we see further is that Pisces being a water sign, the sun in Pisces in itself is having a similar trine, a similar path of most allowance from down here in Scorpio, where Yeshua, your inner Christ, was at that time in the sky. So the sun is receiving from Yeshua this empowerment, this path of most allowance through the inner Christ to funnel all of this divine love energy into the gate activation in Aries, so that this self-love aspect of Leo can break open this heart, compassionate heart space. So there's more to this, and I'll get to it in a minute. What's fascinating is, of course, we've got the semi-sextile from Aries to Pisces. We've got the semi-sextiles from Aries to Taurus. That's where the North Node is. But what's like a further support system here is that where the North Node is here in Taurus, it's making a sextile to the Sun in Pisces. So these are like strands of threads in a tapestry, right? Like if you're looking at a tapestry and it's got red in it and it's got blue in it and it's got white in it, if you decide you're going to pull out that one strand of red, I don't know what they call it, wool or yarn or whatever they're using to make that tapestry, by the time you pull out all the red from the tapestry, there are these huge gaping holes in the tapestry. And so each thread that's weaving together to make the tapestry is an important, significant piece of this beautiful piece of art that contains the integrity of the piece of art in this tapestry. So you see, between the semi-sextiles to the Sun in Pisces and the Sun in the North Node, and then the sextile between the North Node and in Taurus and the Sun in Pisces, this is very intricate weaving together. And so that together they make a stronger field, so to speak, for this compassionate heart space. So then that's the Moon Venus side of this trine, right? The path of most allowance. Then we've got Lilith over here, and Lilith is being supported by a T-square. And isn't it interesting that the same luminary bodies that are supporting the Moon Venus side of the trine are involved in this T-square? Yeshua here in Scorpio that was making the trine to the Sun, and of course the North Node in Taurus. We know Scorpio Taurus, that is an axis, that is a pathway. It's the pathway of intensity for that Kundalini Shakti energy. And that those same luminary bodies, Yeshua, your inner Christ consciousness, and the North Node, this is supposed to happen now for humanity. It is time for humanity to take sovereignty back over their compassionate heart space. And the way to do it is to funnel in from the divine realm of Pisces, that divine love coming through, that is coming from the unmanifest into the manifest as self-love, to help open this up. And of course, the Sun is fueling this. It's keeping, the momentum gets going, and then the Sun keeps fueling the momentum to keep the momentum in motion. So this is a huge activation that happened in February with this 6th strand of DNA coming online. But it's bigger than that. What I discovered when I saw that, we're getting this transplant of the inner masculine, and now we're getting this quantum transplant of our inner masculine, is that it all tied back to this gate activation. So think again about the analogy of a transplant, like in your physical body, right? If you're going to have like a kidney transplant you know, a heart transplant, whatever it is, the body, the frequency of the body and the frequency of the foreign organ that's being put in have got to be able to sync up. They've got to be able to align. And until they do that, transplant patients are given all kinds of medical support to keep the body from not rejecting the organ. Well, this is what this gate activation did. What was happening in this compassionate heart space with all of this empowerment that was coming on both sides of this trine was like, let's say you buy a chateau, hundreds of years old, it's been sitting there abandoned, you know, a half a century, 40, 50 years old, and you go in and there are electrics in there, but they're really antiquated. They maybe don't work, maybe some of them that do work, you know, you kind of careful that they don't start a fire, you know. And so what you're going to have to do is tear out all the old electrics and put new electrics in. This is what this gate activation was doing at this time in February with the re-empowerment of this compassionate heart center. It was taking the electrical field to a higher vibrational set point, like getting a whole new electrics installed, so that by the time the Mars-Pluto opposition happened in May, the electrical field of the compassionate heart space could take in that quantum transplant without the effect of trying to reject it. And likewise, now this month, yesterday, June 5th, when Venus came into that opposition with Pluto, having the being at having that electrical field at the right vibrational set point to receive this quantum transplant of the inner feminine so that it doesn't get rejected. So this is a whole part of this timeline that I just discovered yesterday, okay? And it gets even bigger than this. All right, so here we see this is the field of the compassionate heart. We've got, I love this pattern of the flower of life, which we know is the structure of the quantum field, which we know is the structure of divine love. And so here it's getting this entire electrical upgrade to be able to receive and support these quantum transplants of the inner masculine and the inner feminine. Okay, June 21st. I spoke about June 21st in the June video. It's the summer solstice. And it's the Venus gate activation of the crown chakra, right? The gate of authority. So this is a part of the timeline related to this entire re-empowerment and re-sovereignty over the heart space that's taking place when the Venus and moon come together. Now, what's interesting is that the summer solstice will happen on the 21st at almost 11 a.m., 10:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Venus gate activation of the crown chakra, the gate of authority, which is also bringing online the 10th strand of DNA, it's happening that night at 11:08 p.m. And it's happening at 14 degrees of Leo. Leo, the compassionate heart space, all of this ties together. And so what's happening here in the June video, I said, when you want to engage the sun for this solstice, that it is a perfect time to reignite the inner flame of your Christo-Sophia. And it gets even better because the sun represents the divine father. The moon that's involved with this Venus gate activation represents the divine mother. The summer solstice always happens at 0 degrees of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So you've got this balance between the divine feminine and the divine mother, the divine mother and the divine father. And it's like they're waiting now. They're waiting to receive this Venus gate activation at 14 degrees of Leo. It's almost right at the heart of Leo. You've got 30 degrees, 0 to 29. Most people refer to the 15-degree point as the heart of the sign, but you know, come on, 14 degrees and some odd minutes, you know, it's like practically at the heart of Leo. And so this is a huge, huge opportunity for humanity in terms of this igniting of the sacred flame of our inner Christo-Sophia on the heels of having had the quantum transplant of our inner masculine and the quantum transplant of our inner feminine, coming, like I said, from these higher density realms, right? They're more refined. They're a higher vibrational set point. So you've got a new installment of Christ as divine will. You've got a new installment of Sophia as divine wisdom. As I mentioned in the June video, Christ as divine will. The sacred masculine is this blue flame. Sophia as divine wisdom is the sacred feminine, this rose flame. And I've said over and over and over, they are in perpetual sacred union. And the manifestation of their union is divine love, which is this gold flame here. So this is a really big piece from February 22nd, when that gate activation happened with the 6th strand of DNA, to the solstice, June 21st, you know, 4 months later, and within that time frame where the quantum transplants took place, to kind of seal that surgical procedure that's been happening at the cosmic quantum level for us. This is incredible. Now remember, I said that the Mars oppositions to Pluto and the Venus oppositions to Pluto are happening right before Pluto shifts out of Aquarius into that 29 degrees of Capricorn. That's happening June 11th. So 10 days later is this solstice, and is this gate activation at the gate of authority here, and Pluto's going to be at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the mastery point for having reclaimed and rebirthed your own sovereignty. And when we go back to that February gate activation, that trine to Lilith as a sovereignty goddess, this is like a full circle moment where now we have this sovereignty over our heart spaces that we've not had before on this planet since the since the dark forces have started manipulating humanity and shutting down the heart centers. They did it intentionally because they know that our power is within our inner Christo-Sophia, and they didn't want us having access to that power. So this is a timeline that I've tapped into serendipitously, but obviously it was intended to come into our awareness. This timeline from February 22nd to June 21st, it may very likely be a part of a much larger timeline that I haven't recognized yet. But it's definitely something that is significant in terms of liberating humanity and allowing our evolution to move forward in this quantum leap now that we're going to have sovereignty over our heart space again. So this is a really super, super big deal. And it'll be interesting to see how after the solstice, this starts to manifest in our external reality. So I just want to thank you for sticking with me through this video. This is an incredible drop that Sophia gave to me straight from that quantum field. And, you know, as the month goes on and I get more downloads about things that are transpiring, I'll come back and share subsequent videos with you. But thank you again for being a patron. I really appreciate your support. And thank you again for watching this video. If you have any questions about anything that I'm discussing, you know, feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me by email at sophiamonalisa79@gmail.com. Just remember that Sophia is spelled with an F. Okay, until my next video, have a great day. Bye-bye.